Hello everyone and welcome to another Craftin Desert Divas new release highlight, this time featuring the Inside Scalloped Rectangle Dies. When you first receive your dies, they're going to come connected by these small metal tabs. For this die set, you are going to want to separate the dies from one another. You can do that one of two ways. The first way is to use wire snips. You can find these in online craft stores or your local hardware store. And just simply snip the wire, or you can bend the dies back and forth until they just release from each other like you see I'm doing here. Both ways will work, and you end up with 6 different dies in this die set. You have 3 separate rectangle frames. They're all different sizes. You have a large, a medium, and a small. Each one does have stitching on it, and it is a double stitching feature on these dies. And the stitching is the Craftin Desert Divas stitching. It matches all the other dies in the Craftin Desert Divas line. You also get this great circle frame, a small circle with stitching detail, and finally you get this adorable little bow in the die set as well. Here's a nice close-up photo of all of the dies you will receive in this Inside Scalloped Circle die set. These dies are wafer-thin dies, and they can be used in any machine, die-cutting machine that accepts wafer-thin dies. I'm going to be using my Big Kick today. I've got my multi-purpose platform with both tabs down. I'll go ahead and put one cutting plate down, a piece of white cardstock. This is just plain heavyweight white cardstock that I'm using. Then I'll go ahead and place my die down. You want those cutting ridges facing your paper. They aren't sharp at all, but that's what's going to cut through your paper. Then you've got your cutting plate right on top of that, and I'll go ahead and run this through my die machine. So let's take a closer look at the rectangle dies in this set. The first one I want to look at is the largest rectangle in this set. Now each time you run these through your die cutting machine, you're going to be left with 2 separate pieces, and I want to show you both. Now the first is the frame, of course, with the inside scallop on that detail and the double stitching, but you also have this great piece from the inside, which you can use separately, or you can use it to create a scene and then inlay it right back into the frame for a nice die cut inlay scene that has a nice frame around it. There's a closer look at that frame that you get and that stitching detail that does get cut into the frame whenever you run it through your machine. Now this is a very good sized rectangle. It is 4 inches across by 5 1/4 inch tall. So just about 1/4 inch on each side, or it is 1/4 inch on each side. So it's a nice mat for an A2 size card. Now the inside portion of this measures 3 1/4 inch across by 4 1/2 inches tall. So again, a very good sized die cut that you're getting. There's a closer look at all those different pieces with your one die cut. Moving on to the medium rectangle, again, you're going to get both of those die cuts when you run this through your machine. And again, this one has the stitching detail on it as well. It is the double stitching feature, and this matches all of the other stitching that is on your Craftin Desert Divas dies, so you don't have to hunt through your die sets to find matching stitching for your card. Now again, you have that great inside piece that you can inlay right back in. I think it also, if you do a little bit of die cut inlay, it looks like a stamp, so you can get a nice stamp outline too. Now there's a closer look at that stitching detail on the medium die, and this is a good size as well. It is 2 7/8 inches across and 4 1/4 inches tall. Then you've got that great inside piece that is 2 1/2 inches across, and then tall it is 3 3/4 inches. So again, these are very good sized dies. Here's a closer look at all of those dies you get when you run that one die through your cutting machine. Now finally, we're going to move on to the smallest die. This is the same as the other ones, just a little bit smaller. And you can do some great inlay techniques with all of these dies together. There's a nice close-up of that stitching detail on the smaller die. And then of course you have that inside piece that you can inlay right back in and create a nice little scene on it too. There's a closer look at that outside frame and the stitching detail on it. Now again, this is the smallest die in the set. Now for the size on this, it is 2 1/8 inches across And then tall, it is 3.5 inches. So this is still a pretty good sized rectangle you're getting with this die. Now for the inside of this, it is 1 3/4 inches across and then 3 1/8 inches tall. Now here is a final look at that smallest die and the dies you get when you run it through your machine. Also, this will be over on the Craftin Desert Divas website for reference. It's all of the sizes of those rectangle dies. Now for the extras, I want to go over these. I call them little extras that are in the die set. This great little adorable bow. This bow measures 1 3/8 inches across, and then it's 7/8 of an inch tall. Now this is an adorable addition to any card, and it can be used with your rectangle dies as well. Here's a closer look at that die cut bow up close. And you can see just how delicate it really is. Now moving on to the 2 circles in the set, this first one I want to go over is a circle frame. Now these are adorable and can be used to create little shakers on your card or little windows for some critters. Now across and tall, because it is a circle, it measures 1 3/8 inch. Now you also get this great little circle from the center of this die cut, which you can use by itself, or you can inlay it right back in, and that measures 1 inch across. Then included in this die set also is this tiny little circle with stitching detail on it, which can be used to create some great polka dots. Now this measures 1/2 inch across and tall as well. These dies would be great to use together along with one of the Inside Scalloped Rectangle dies to create a fun shaker and polka dot card. There's a closer look at that frame, as well as the smallest circle with the stitching on it. Now this will be over on the Craftin Desert Divas website for reference. It's all of the measurements of those little extra dies. Now one thing I like to see whenever I look at videos like this is these dies in reference to an A2 size card. So I'm just going to stack these up. This is an A2 top folding black card base that I have here, and you can see these make some great mats. I also went ahead and put on these little extras just for reference, and I went ahead and added that little bow to the circle. It would make a very cute wreath. There's an idea. There's a closer look at all of those rectangles stacked up on the A2 card just for a nice reference. And one final look at all of the dies and die cuts you receive in this one set. The design team has been very busy with this new die set. Here's a look at some of their cards to help get you inspired. Dies will be available on August 9th at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time in the Craftin Desert Divas online shop. That link will be in the description box.